Hello! For those that don't know me, my name is Carla and I'm also an artist and owner of a small business called GUMROAD. So in this video, we're going to be talking about how I started printing my own merch at home, the equipment that I use, and my overall workflow if printing merch at home is worth the investment. So here's just a background of the things that I do. I'm a full-time artist, but I've been doing events and conventions since I was 13. I've been running my online store where I sell my art online, and the main items I've been making while running my business is primarily prints and stickers. Before I invested in a home printer, I used to outsource a lot of my products, posters, stickers, charms, etc. While it was nice to be able to submit your work and let a professional handle the formatting, bulk printing, and cut service, the costs did start to add up. Whenever I had events, I had to prioritize deadlines and order on time to make sure it would arrive before my event. I didn't like that shipping was generally expensive for one person, so I would sometimes split with other artists to cover the costs. My overall problem was overstocking. Selling art can be unpredictable, so sometimes a poster will do well and I'll sell out on a design, or a print won't do well and I'll hoard overstock of a design pretty much forever. This is still a learning curve for me in terms of how much to stock, but since I had to order my designs, I would often have to keep in mind how much to order for stock for each event especially. I also ordered stickers in bulk because I couldn't make them at home, so oftentimes if I want to test out a design, I would order at least 20 pieces, which tends to be the minimum order quantity for a design online. I decided to invest in my own printer so that I can cut the back and forth service between the printer and myself. This also allowed me to color correct my own work so that the printer or the servicer themselves didn't have to email me that some of the colors are not going to show up correctly. I also have control over the stock of my own prints, so I can print as low as 3 copies if I really wanted to, without having to meet the minimum order quantity of most services. And the best part is that I could do last-minute stocking. I often came across the problem where I would run out of stickers or posters mid-convention, so having a printer was a lifesaver because I could go home and restock for the next day. But of course, these services can also be alleviated if there's a FedEx or some kind of local print shop near your convention, and normally people will just have to walk there to do some last-minute orders. They tend to be a little bit more expensive per piece, depending on the show, but if it adds up to your cost or fits your budget, then I say why not. Again, this is just my own experience and how I'm trying to cut costs and also have more control over the manufacturing of my own work. So this is why I chose to invest in my own printer. The nice thing also about having your own printer is now I can test print my own merch. I always have ideas, endless illustration ideas I want to try out, so having a printer allows me to test print stickers at a very low quantity. I can make 1 sticker if I really wanted to, and this allows me to take photos and post online if people are interested, rather than investing in 20 pieces of 1 sticker, not knowing if it'll do well, and then posting it on my store. Here are some of the things I was looking for when trying to invest in a printer. I was interested in being able to print exactly what I was outsourcing, so it was important to be able to handle printing art prints and oversized prints. I would also be spending money on ink from previous experience on owning home printers. Ink cartridges are very expensive, so cost-effective ink was also very important. This narrowed down home printers to artist/photo printers, Ecotanks, and large format sizing. It should have been able to do all 3 for me, and that would have been a good investment. I did some searching based off of these criteria and narrowed it down between Epson and Canon, which are known to handle fine art and photography printing. Here are some of the videos I watched which helped inform me on people using the printer for the same use I was hoping to achieve. I found that this video was the most helpful. I watched this video by Co. Their video was very helpful in testing out all of the sources and projects that I normally would also take on. Paper Co. covers basically being able to print stationery, stickers, and any 3D projects at home. So having that resource and information available made it more easier for me to narrow down what kind of printers to use. Doing lots of research based off of the type of printer that you need is really efficient, just because being able to know how people are using these printers, what kind of crafts that you plan to do, helps get an information on the back of your head of how much things are going to cost before you invest in one. Now I know that these types of printers can handle the types of crafts that I'm interested in doing, which is just making prints and stickers. But yeah, so after much researching and deciding, I decided to invest in an Epson Ecotank 8550. So this printer actually has a smaller model version called the Epson 8500. But the difference was that the 8550 was able to print up to 13 by 19 inches in size, while the 8500 can print only up to 8.5 by 14 inches. And since I need to sometimes print posters at home, I do a lot of shows with large format posters, which are 11 by 17. The 8550 was well worth the upgrade compared to just buying the smaller model. What was also enjoyable about this product was the refillable ink bottles. No more expensive and wasting cartridges, because whenever you print maybe like 5 to 10 photos, suddenly the ink's all gone. So the nice thing about the Ecotank is that you can just refill it with bottles, so you actually don't have to take the cartridges out. And they have lasted me up to a year. Yes, I'm not joking, a year. If you are like me and I print a lot of posters, lots of prints, lots of stickers. I also use my printer for my online business. So this is the printer that I use to restock a lot of my merch. I've had to refill it twice, basically in 1 year. And this is just because the stuff that I make is very heavy in ink use, such as posters with very colorful backgrounds. The colors that I've had to restock the most was either black or red, just because most of my artwork does contain those colors more. But if you're planning on using this printer for everyday use, and you're probably not printing gigantic posters with colored backgrounds, then you'll probably refill less than I do. But since I do attend lots of events and run an online business, refilling once and twice a year is still pretty good versus having to buy cartridges per event, which is what I experienced before. And yeah, that's saying a lot. I've had this printer for 2 years now, and it has worked up to its name. So there are pros and there are cons of printing at home. So the cons of printing at home. There is a learning curve to having a printer at home. What people underestimate is that aside from just connecting and plugging in your printer, you also have to research what suitable paper types and print settings is suitable for your work. So I had to spend a lot of time researching what settings to print at, what color settings I had to achieve in order to make my artwork look as vibrant as I see them on my monitor. Thankfully, this is covered in a video I watched about doing test prints at home, so I'll link it right here. And essentially, this artist just basically prints in smaller thumbnails of their work before committing to a large print. Now, the nice thing about this is that per thumbnail, you can adjust accordingly. If you need to increase the brightness, saturation, if a color just isn't popping right, you can correct that before committing to a huge piece of paper and wasting a huge poster already, and then finding out, hey, this doesn't look as good as I thought. So again, lots of testing involved before having the right print for your artwork. This was really helpful because you'll find a lot of resources of other creatives online sharing what settings and tips they have for printing at home. So really, I just recommend just looking that up. Another thing that's kind of a con is it's up to you to maintain and clean your printer. So it'll happen, you will get a lot of mistake prints and products. I noticed the convenience of having a professional handle your prints is that they handle any mistake prints or ink splotches and you don't have to pay for that wasted material. Whereas while I'm printing at home, sometimes you have to maintain your printer. Yes, that's a thing. The machine will eventually have ink stains. So you have to wipe that down or run lots of maintenance on your printer so that it can clean the ink in its tubes. But yeah. So I often have to wipe down the ink pads or rollers or run a cleaning cycle every now and then to keep my printer from bleeding onto new paper. This is normal. The machine can clean itself, but you have to maintain it instead of paying someone else to maintain their own printers. So just keep these things in mind because they do take up time and knowledge just to be able to make your own merch at home. So I understand the frustrations of just meeting a deadline and trying to print some stuff out, but you have to clean your printer. So I've run into that problem a lot. Also, you have to dedicate a lot of time to printing in bulk or if you have restocking days. So goodbye to the days where you just submit your artwork, send it to some printer somewhere off that's not near your address, and they handle all the bulk printing of standing there and printing all your merch. So now you have to do that yourself. Yeah, I get the convenience of paying someone else to do that, but now you have to sit next to your printer for an hour waiting for it to print out each print or merch. So also keeping in mind the time it takes to have to make your stuff at home is part of just owning a printer. There's also a limit to the quality of prints and stickers you can make versus industrial grade machines. So I noticed that some posters will have a more matte finish or glossy finish that I just can't achieve with home printers. There's also a certain thickness that your home printer can only do. Because these home printers have a certain size rollers that can only take in these types of thick papers versus an industrial grade machine, which is much bigger, probably has bigger rollers, can eat those types of paper. So they don't sell those types of paper towards people at home who print at thinner qualities. If you want to print, thicker card stock, thicker cover papers, sometimes home printers just can't achieve that. I can print up to about 300 GSM, or I want to say above 110 LB. That information is kind of hard to describe, but basically it's very thick cardstock or thick cover paper. And my printer already has a hard time trying to eat that paper just because the rollers are so small. So again, you just have to take these information in mind of what kind of merch you're trying to print. Thankfully, that's the maximum thickness I would go for my prints or posters. I don't go any thicker than that usually, but if you're trying to print anything much thicker than that, you'd probably have to outsource it. The only reason I would actually still order online, even though I have a printer at home, is if I'm ordering in an extremely large bulk for stocking for multiple shows or events, or my time frame is way too small for me to be able to print this all by myself. I get it. Sometimes people have deadlines and they don't want to worry about having to make all that merch at home while they're still working on other stuff. So if I can't meet that deadline, I'll just order it. Honestly, it's the same thing. And sometimes you do save some more money if you order in bulk because you get a bigger discount for ordering so much versus having to purchase all that material and ink yourself and then having to print all that out. So the cost, again, you just weigh the cost of what you think is more efficient. But since I'm more used to printing in smaller quantities and having more control over printing in just small amounts versus large amounts, then that's why I tend to print more at home. Again, there are other items that you cannot achieve with the printer as well. So I've been interested in adding foil to some of my prints or spot UV gloss, which I see is very popular. Again, I can't do that with my own printer. So letting a professional handle those kinds of finishes might be more useful for you. Eventually, I would like to learn how to do that myself at home, but just with a printer, a home printer, some things you just can't achieve besides having to buy laminate for those types of things. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, if this video was helpful for you and just a little bit of an explanation as to why I started printing my merch at home, maybe it's more helpful that if you print your merch at home, or it's more cost effective that you just outsource it. Just really depends on what you're trying to achieve, whether it's money or just convenience wise. But I do have some more tutorials of like how I'm actually making my merch, such as like making my stickers or making photocards. I have those videos linked separately below. You can also probably request what my settings are for my prints and how I print my posters. I could probably go into another depth video about that. But again, yeah, just let me know in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. All right, bye-bye.